in the dim glow of a flickering neon sign. Outside a forgotten roadside diner, a woman sat alone at the counter, her hands trembling as she stared into her coffee. Tears welled in her eyes, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she confessed to the stranger beside her, "I'm not pretty." The cowboy, weathered by years under the sun, turned his head slowly, his eyes kind beneath the brim of his hat. "That's fine," he replied softly. "I need honest, not fancy." Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Ripples and Legends, and leave a like and comment if this story touches your heart. Ella had always felt like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, but lately it felt like the world was crushing her entirely. At 38, she looked older than her years, lines etched deep from endless nights and a string of bad choices that had left her scarred, both inside and out. A car accident 5 years ago had taken more than her husband's life. It had left her face marked with a jagged scar, running from her cheek to her jaw, a constant reminder that beauty, as the world defined it, was no longer hers. She'd lost her job as a receptionist soon after. The boss citing image concerns in a way that made her stomach twist. Friends drifted away, whispers followed her in the grocery store, and her mirror became an enemy she avoided at all costs. She packed what little she had into her old pickup truck and driven west, chasing some vague notion of a fresh start in the open spaces of Montana, but the road only amplified her loneliness. Bills piled up, motels grew seedier, and hope faded like the setting sun. That night she'd pulled into Dusty Creek, a speck of a town with one diner, one gas station, and miles of empty ranchland stretching into the darkness. The diner, called The Last Stop, smelled of greasy fries and strong coffee. Its booths cracked and faded from decades of weary travelers. Ella slid onto a stool at the counter, ordering the cheapest thing on the menu, a bowl of chili that she poked at more than 8. Her mind raced with doubts. What was she even doing here? Who would hire a woman like her looking the way she did? The scar pulled tight when she tried to smile, and she'd stopped trying long ago. She felt invisible yet painfully exposed. That's when he walked in, Jack Harlan. Though she didn't know his name yet, he was a cowboy through and through. Not the Hollywood kind with shiny boots, but the real deal, faded jeans, a worn flannel shirt, and boots caked in the red dust of his ranch. At 52, he'd lived a life of quiet solitude after losing his wife to cancer a decade earlier. Ranching was all he knew, tending to cattle under endless skies, finding solace in the rhythm of the land. But loneliness had a way of creeping in, especially on nights like this, when the wind howled through the valleys. Jack took the stool too, down from hers, nodding politely to the waitress Mabel, an older woman with a warm smile who knew everyone's story in town. "The usual, Jack?" Mabel asked, pouring him coffee without waiting for an answer. He grunted affirmatively, his voice gravely from years of dust and silence. Ella kept her head down, but she could feel his glance. Not the pitying kind she'd grown used to, but something curious, almost gentle. The diner was empty save for them and Mabel humming in the back, so when the silence stretched too long, Jack cleared his throat. "Rough night out there." He said more to the air than to her. "Storms brewing." She nodded faintly, not expecting conversation, but the words slipped out anyway, born from exhaustion and the ache in her chest. "Yeah, feels like it's always storming lately." Her voice cracked and she turned slightly away, hiding the scarred side of her face. Jack sipped his coffee, unhurried. "Name's Jack. You passing through, Ella?" She whispered, surprised at herself for answering. "Yeah. Just looking for something work. Maybe a place to land." He nodded. No judgment in his eyes. "Plenty of land out here. Not much else, but it's honest work if you can find it." Honest, the word hung there, stirring something in her. She glanced at him, really looked. His face was lined like old leather eyes, a faded blue that held stories of their own. No ring on his finger, no flashiness. Just a man who'd seen hard times and kept going. As Mabel refilled their cups, the conversation trickled on. Ella found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years. She talked about the accident, the scar, the way people stared, or worse, looked away. "I used to care about how I looked," she admitted, her voice low. "Tried makeup, hats, everything, but it's no use. I'm not pretty anymore, haven't been for a long time." Jack set his cup down, turning to face her fully. His expression didn't change. No shock, no pity. Just steady. "I'm not pretty," she whispered again, as if testing him, daring him to agree or flee. "That's fine," he replied, His voice even and warm. I need honest, not fancy. The words hit her like a gentle wave washing over the walls she built. She stared at him, tears blurring her vision. What do you mean? He shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. Fancy's overrated. Seen plenty of it in my day. People chasing looks, money. All that shine but honest. That's rare. Means you say what you feel. Work hard, don't hide behind nothing. That's what builds a life worth living. Ella wiped her eyes, a laugh escaping through the tears, rusty but real for the first time in forever. She felt seen, not for her flaws, but for the strength beneath them. They talked late into the night, the diner clock ticking past closing as Mabel pretended not to notice. Jack shared his own scars. The wife he'd loved and lost, the ranch that nearly broke him in a drought, the nights he'd questioned if it was all worth it. Life kicks you down, he said. But kindness, that's what gets you back up. Not from strangers, usually from folks who see the real you. By the time they stepped out into the cool night air, the storm had passed, leaving stars scattered like promises across the sky. Jack offered her a job on his ranch. Nothing glamorous, mending fences, feeding horses, but a start. No pressure, he added. Just honest work for an honest soul. Ella hesitated, touching her scar self-consciously. You sure I don't want to be a burden? He chuckled softly. Burden, darling? You're a breath of fresh air. Come by tomorrow if you want. Gates always open. She did go the next day, her truck rumbling up the dirt road to Harlan Ranch. The place was modest, a weathered house. Barns dotted with cattle hills rolling into the horizon. Jack greeted her with coffee and a nod. No fanfare, he showed her around, patient as she learned the ropes. Days turned to weeks, and in the quiet routines, something bloomed. Ella found purpose in the physical work. Her hands growing callous, but her heart softening. The scar didn't vanish. But it mattered less. Ranch hands nodded to her without staring, and Jack's quiet encouragement built her up, one kind word at a time. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and pinks, Ella turned to him. Why me, Jack? You could have hired anyone. He leaned back, hat tipped low. Because you were honest from the start, didn't try to pretty it up. And in a world full of fancy lies, that's what I needed, someone real. Tears came again, but these were different. Cleansing, hopeful. In Jack's eyes she saw not pity, but respect, maybe even the beginnings of love. Not the whirlwind kind, but the steady flame that warms through winter. Months passed and Ella transformed. She laughed more, stood taller. The ranch thrived with her help, and word spread in Dusty Creek about the woman who'd found her footing. Jack, too, seemed lighter, his solitude replaced by companionship. They weren't a fairy tale, no grand gestures, just two broken souls mending together through small acts of kindness. One day, a young girl from town visited the ranch with her school group. She had a birthmark covering half her face. Shy and withdrawn, Ella knelt down, smiling fully for the first time in years. Hey there, she said. You know, I used to hide too. But someone taught me that honest is better than fancy. Want to help me feed the horses? The girl nodded, eyes wide, and in that moment Ella realized the ripple effect. Kindness wasn't just received, it was passed on, creating connections that healed wounds deeper than skin. Years later, looking back, Ella often thought of that diner night. Life hadn't been easy, storms came and went, but compassion had turned strangers into family. Jack's words became her mantra, a reminder that true beauty lies in authenticity, in the courage to be seen as you are, and in the quiet vastness of Montana. Under those endless stars, she found not just a home, but hope that, no matter how scarred or weary, a single act of kindness can light the way forward, proving we're all worthy of connection. Of second chances. It's not about being pretty. It's about being real, and in that truth we find our strength.